Hello, and welcome to The Explainer. We live in a world that feels like it's getting more complicated every single day. We're bombarded with information, dealing with problems that are so interconnected, it's hard to tell where they even begin or end. And our old ways of thinking, our simple, linear, cause and effect logic, well, it often falls short, doesn't it? It leaves us feeling overwhelmed and confused. Today, we're going to dive into a completely different way of seeing. It's a mental model, a new set of glasses that can help us make sense of this complexity. We're talking about a tool for seeing the invisible patterns and structures that shape our lives, our organizations, and our world. And we'll be exploring it through what is arguably one of the most important guidebooks ever written on the subject.
So let's get right to the heart of it with a feeling I'm sure every single one of us has had. I want you to really think about this. Have you ever been completely, utterly stuck? You're facing a problem, and you're pushing against it with everything you've got. You're trying so hard, but it feels like you're pushing against a brick wall that's pushing back. Maybe you find a solution, and for a week or a month, things get better. You breathe a sigh of relief. But then it comes back. The same exact problem, maybe even in a slightly different disguise. It's that feeling of being caught in a current, swimming as hard as you can just to stay in the same place. It's exhausting, and it's demoralizing.
And this just captures that feeling perfectly, doesn't it? It's the whack-a-mole problem. You solve one issue, and suddenly two more pop up in its place. Let's really break down an example. Think about feeling constantly tired. The symptom is fatigue. The immediate, obvious solution, drink more coffee. And for an hour or two, it works. You feel alert, you're productive. The problem seems solved. But what's happening beneath the surface? That extra caffeine late in the day disrupts your sleep. You get fewer hours of deep, restorative rest. So the next morning, you wake up even more tired than before. So what do? You reach for an even bigger cup of coffee. You're now in a reinforcing loop, a vicious cycle where your solution is actually making the original problem worse over the long term. This pattern of fixes that fail is a giant, flashing sign that we're not seeing the whole picture.
So if our best efforts and our cleverest fixes just lead us deeper into the trap, what's the answer? Well, maybe the answer isn't a better solution at all. Maybe the answer is a better way of seeing the problem in the first place. And that is the central promise of our source for today's explainer, the legendary book, Thinking in Systems, a Primer, by the late, great Donella H. Meadows. Meadows was a brilliant scientist, a MacArthur Genius Fellow, and a pioneering environmental thinker. This book is her masterpiece, a distillation of a lifetime of wisdom. It's like a pair of X-ray glasses that lets you look past the surface-level events and see the hidden structures, the invisible forces that you've been fighting against all along. It teaches us a new language for understanding complexity itself.
That brings us to our very first section. We're going to start our investigation right here with this fundamental question. Why do some problems feel like they have a mind of their own? Why do our best-laid plans go awry? And why do our solutions so often backfire? Let's pull back the curtain and find out why these problems seem to fight back.
Here it is. This is the core mistake, the fundamental error in judgment that traps us again and again. We are trained to see events, to see the symptoms. The budget is overspent. A key employee resigned. Sales are down this quarter. And we react. We cut costs, we hire a replacement, we launch a new marketing campaign. We're fighting what's right in front of us. The book uses the classic metaphor. It's like seeing a puddle on your kitchen floor and spending all your time and energy mopping it up. The floor is dry for a little while, but the puddle always comes back. And you can buy better mops, you can mop faster, but you will be mopping for the rest of your life until you look up, see the leaky pipe in the ceiling, and fix the structure that's causing the problem in the first place.
And the book's cover gives us this perfect, beautiful metaphor to hold on to, a slinky. Now, think about it. If you take a single metal ring from a slinky and study it, it's incredibly simple. It's just a circle of wire. You can understand everything there is to know about it. But the moment you connect it to 100 other rings, something new emerges. The whole becomes more than the sum of its parts. You can hold the top ring perfectly still, and the bottom can bounce and oscillate in complex ways. You can set it at the top of a flight of stairs and it will walk its way down, a behavior you could never ever predict by just looking at one ring. That's a system. Its behavior emerges from the interconnections. And just like with a slinky, a small push in one part of your life or your organization can create unexpected, delayed, and far-reaching consequences throughout the entire structure.
So, this leads us right into our second section. If the core problem is that we are blind to the underlying system, the slinky that connects everything, then the only real solution is to learn how to see it. It's time to put on those X-ray glasses and explore the secret world of systems.
Donella Meadows gives us this elegantly simple yet incredibly powerful definition. Let's really take a moment and break this down, because every word here matters. First, a system has elements.
These are the parts we can see and count. The players on a football team, the trees in a forest, the departments in a company. We're usually pretty good at seeing the elements. Second, and this is crucial, it has interconnections. These are the relationships, the rules, the flow of information that hold the elements together. It's the team's playbook, but it's also the trust and communication between the players. It's the predator-prey relationship in the forest. These interconnections are often invisible, but they are almost always more important than the elements in determining the system's behavior. Finally, a system has a function or a purpose. It achieves something. The team's purpose is to win games. The forest's purpose is to grow, regenerate, and cycle nutrients. The tricky part is that a system's true purpose is revealed by its behavior, not by what anyone says it is. A company might say its purpose is to serve customers, but if all its behavior is geared toward maximizing quarterly profits, then that is its true purpose.
And as you can see from looking at the full book cover, front and back, this isn't just an abstract philosophy. It's designed to be a practical, hands-on toolkit. The back cover essentially gives us a roadmap, a framework for how to actually start seeing and engaging with the systems all around us. It lays out the key characteristics, the common pitfalls, and most importantly, the places where we can intervene to make a real difference.
And here is that toolkit laid out for us. This is the promise of the book. It gives us the 3 major characteristics of all systems, things like resilience and self-organization, so we can recognize their fundamental nature. Then it gives us 12 leverage points. This is the really exciting stuff. These are the places in a system where a small, well-placed nudge can create huge, cascading change. It also identifies the 8 biggest, most common system traps, the quicksand pits that we consistently fall into, and shows us how to get out of them. And finally, it gives us 15 survival rules, which is pure wisdom for how to live and act with humility and effectiveness in a complex world. This is our map to becoming a systems thinker.
Okay, so we've got our map. We know what a system is, but before we can become master navigators, we first have to understand the common mistakes we're already making. We have to understand why we keep getting lost. And that brings us to section 3, how we get trapped. Let's take a look at the common pitfalls that keep us running in circles.
So when we're blind to the interconnections, when we only see the elements and the symptoms, we inevitably fall into what Meadows calls system traps. Now, the most important thing to understand about these traps is that they are almost never anyone's fault. They aren't the result of bad people or bad intentions. They are recurring patterns of behavior that are baked into the very structure of the system itself. They are like well-worn grooves that are easy to slide into and very difficult to get out of. And that's why we see the same kinds of problems, like addiction, policy gridlock, and market failures, appearing again and again in different cultures, in different contexts all over the world.
And here they are, the 8 major traps identified in the book. You might recognize some of these just from their names. Escalation, for example, that's any kind of arms race where 2 or more competitors get locked in a vicious cycle of trying to one-up each other, often until they both run out of resources and collapse. Success to the successful is the formal name for the rich get richer phenomenon, where initial winners are given more resources, making it even more likely they'll win again, concentrating wealth and power. For this explainer, we're going to do a deep dive into one of the most common and subtle traps of them all.
Let's really unpack this one. Shifting the burden to the intervener. It's a 2-part name for a reason. First, there's the shifting the burden part. It works like this. A problem appears, creating pressure or a symptom. A quick and easy external fix is applied. That's the intervener. And voila, the symptom disappears and the pressure is relieved. But, and this is the crucial hidden part of the trap, the system's own ability to solve the problem for itself starts to weaken, to atrophy, just like a muscle it's never used. This creates a dependency on the intervener. For example, a company is having trouble innovating, so they hire expensive consultants, the interveners. The consultants come in, create a new product, and the immediate problem is solved. But the internal R&D team never learned how to innovate themselves. Their skills atrophy. So the next time the company needs a new product, who do they have to call? The consultants. The burden of innovation has been permanently shifted, creating a costly dependency and a weaker organization.
Okay, so that's the bad news. That's how we get trapped in these frustrating, counterproductive cycles. But the good news, and really the most empowering and hopeful part of this entire way of thinking, is that there is a powerful alternative. And that brings us to our 4th section, learning to dance with systems. Our default mode, which is born out of our frustration and our linear way of thinking, is to fight. When a system doesn't give us the results we want, we try to force it into submission. We use brute force, we look for a villain to blame, we try to impose control. Think about that language. We wage a war on drugs, we fight poverty, we battle against the competition. This creates an adversarial relationship with the world, and it's why we feel so constantly exhausted. It's like trying to make a river flow uphill by pushing the water with your bare hands. It's a losing battle against the fundamental nature of the system.
But the book offers us a radically different and more beautiful metaphor. It's not about fighting. It's about dancing. Now just think about the difference for a second. Fighting is about conflict, control, and domination. Dancing, on the other hand, is about partnership, harmony, and grace. A good dancer doesn't force their partner to move. A good dancer listens to the rhythm of the music, they observe the system's behavior, they move with the flow of the system, not against it. It requires skill, observation, and a deep respect for the dynamics that are already in play. It's about creating something beautiful together.
So what are the dance moves? How do we actually learn to dance with a complex system? The answer is by finding and using what Meadows famously called leverage points. This is probably her most important contribution. A leverage point is a place within a complex system, a factory, an ecosystem, a city, an economy, where a small shift in one thing can produce big changes in everything. It's the art of finding the trim tab on a giant ship, the tiny rudder that can turn the whole vessel with minimal effort. It's about finding where a small, elegant intervention can have the most profound and lasting impact. In the book, Meadows gives us a list of 12 distinct types of leverage points, and she ranks them in order from the least effective to the most powerful. Now, here's the fascinating part. We, as a society, spend almost all of our time, money, and energy focusing on the very weakest leverage points, things like changing numbers, tweaking budgets, adjusting interest rates, setting quotas. These are easy to do, but they rarely change the fundamental behavior of the system. The most powerful leverage points, on the other hand, are much more subtle. The most powerful leverage points involve changing the system's goals. For example, shifting a company's goal from simply maximizing quarterly profit to creating sustainable long-term value for all stakeholders is a high-leverage intervention that changes thousands of subsequent decisions down the line. And the single most powerful leverage point of all, changing the mindset, the paradigm, out of which the system, its goals, its rules, its entire structure arises.
So let's bring all of these incredible ideas together now, as we head into our final section. What does this all add up to? When you start to understand systems, their traps, and their leverage points, you realize this is more than just a set of tools for problem solving. It's a fundamentally new way of seeing the world itself.
Ultimately, thinking in systems shifts our entire focus. We stop being obsessed with individual events and quick fixes. We stop looking for someone to blame. Instead, we start to see the world as it truly is, a vast, beautiful, intricate web of interconnections. We begin to understand that nothing happens in isolation and that every action has ripples and consequences, some of which we may never even see. It moves us away from a state of reactive frustration and toward a state of proactive curiosity, humility, and empowerment.
This is the transformation in a nutshell. This is the journey. You move from blame to understanding. You stop seeing isolated events and you start seeing the long-term patterns of behavior. You stop fighting for control, which is an illusion anyway, and you learn to start dancing with complexity. And you graduate from constantly seeking short-term, superficial, quick fixes to wisely finding and pressing on true leverage points. It's a profound shift from a worldview of frustration to one of wisdom and effectiveness.
And that, truly, is what we want to leave you with. Learning to see the world through a systems lens is a genuine superpower in the 21st century. It's like having X-ray vision. You can look at a problem at work, a conflict in your family, or a major news story, and you'll be able to see the underlying structures, the feedback loops, the hidden goals and rules that are driving the behavior. It gives you a clarity and a sense of agency in a world that so often feels chaotic, random, and completely out of our control. So we'll end with a direct question, an invitation for you. I want you to call to mind that one persistent, stubborn, frustrating problem in your life or your work, the one we talked about at the very beginning. Now, just for this week, what if you stopped trying to fight it? What if, instead, you decided to just observe it, to get curious? What are the elements? What are the interconnections? What is its actual purpose, based on its behavior? What would it look like to stop trying to force it, to stop trying to wrestle it to the ground, and just listen to its music and learn the first few steps of the dance?